Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. This week, the Assembly passed a series of trans-related bills along party lines. The three bills would bar trans athletes in Wisconsin from participating in women's sports at the K-12 and collegiate levels. A third bill would bar gender-affirming care for minors. Now, we heard from a local Dane County legislator, too, who spoke on the Assembly floor during the debate.
My son and other members of our transgender community know exactly who they are. And ultimately, that's what the vile hatred and intolerance of this legislation and hate of our transgender community seeks to destroy. Acceptance. Acceptance of people who want to be their true selves.
These bills will now head to the state Senate. We're joined by Phoebe Petrovic, an investigative reporter with Wisconsin Watch, who's been covering these issues and bills. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So first, I kind of want to start out with a definition here. What do we mean when we talk about this idea of gender-affirming care?
So it's really a broad process that is nonlinear, and it looks different for every single transgender person, but it involves social, medical, legal components that all, serve to make a person look on the outside as they feel authentically on the inside. So it can include things like social transition, which is simply, changing your name or your pronouns, changing your haircut or the way that you dress, to things like eventually when you get to puberty and after puberty, potentially taking blockers or hormones, potentially surgery, or things like changing your gender markers and your names legally, so that when you hand your driver's license or your passport over to someone, it reflects who you are on the outside.
And so now, what does this look like from a healthcare perspective, and who governs some of those decisions?
So in the United States, the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, or WPATH, and the Endocrine Society are two of the primary organizations that develop the standards of care that sort of is the guideline for what gender-affirming care should look like. And the important thing to note is that the medical aspects of gender-affirming care or affirmative care are endorsed by every single mainstream medical association in the United States, well over 20 of them, including the American Medical Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics. And so these guidelines or these standards of care are what clinics in Wisconsin, there are two clinics in Wisconsin that treat gender diverse youth. That's what they use to determine what care they will provide and when. And so gender affirming care, the medical aspects of it look very different depending on how old a person is, how their body has developed, and what stage they are in that development. So before puberty, just, young children, elementary school age, there's no medical aspects involved in gender affirming care whatsoever. They may go to a gender clinic and talk to a clinician, but that's just a psychosocial assessment. They might get access to resources and books and support groups, might walk the parents through what to look like or what to expect, but there's no medical intervention that is offered until a child hits puberty. Then when you hit puberty, and if a child is diagnosed with gender incongruence, which is part of the standard, and parents' consent, and the child assents, there may be puberty blockers that are offered, and then hormone replacement therapy going on estrogen or testosterone. And then from there, in Wisconsin, there are no bottom surgeries, no genital surgeries offered to anyone who is under 18. And one clinic in Wisconsin offers chest masculization surgery only, sometimes to people who are under 18, but really it's like 16, 17, and only in extreme cases with a really comprehensive assessment beforehand.
Some of this legislation distinguishes between kind of the stage of puberty, but also kind of the age of majority, 18. That's a difference of a couple of years. What would that mean for somebody who's looking to get this gender-affirming care?
Yeah, so right now, the earliest medical interventions that a child or adolescent can get are at puberty. And so, puberty is can happen anywhere from 8 to 14, depending on the person. And that's a significant time where our bodies go through a ton of changes. And transgender adults who didn't have access to gender affirming care when they were children, who maybe didn't come out until they were adults, some of them have reflected and said, I was forced to go through a puberty that was sort of innately programmed into my body, but that conflicted with my gender identity. And, as a result of that, I've had to spend a significant amount of time, money, and in some cases, pain, going through procedures as an adult to sort of, try to reverse some of the effects of that ingrained, programmed in puberty. So like a trans woman, for instance, testified at these hearings a couple weeks ago or last week, that she had to spend a lot of money on electrolysis to remove her beard, voice training to change her voice. And these were things that she potentially could have avoided if she had access to puberty blockers and then feminizing hormones while going through that puberty. So that's one of the big things is blockers, which give people time and space to develop their identities, decide what they want to do, and then hormones that might allow them to go through one puberty rather than two, that just aligns with how they feel on the inside. That's sort of the main thing. And then, surgeries don't really happen very often, and they don't happen at all. For genital surgeries or bottom surgeries before the age of 18.
There are a lot of comparisons that we heard this Thursday during the floor debate, drawing comparisons to some Scandinavian countries. How does this legislation and the kind of policy that we're looking at here in Wisconsin compare to what they're doing kind of in Europe over there?
It's a really misleading and false comparison, which is made all the more ironic. The fact that these Scandinavian countries that they refer to have socialized medicine, and we definitely don't like that here in the US. But no European country has implemented blanket bans on gender affirming care for transgender youth, as American states have done, or in Wisconsin's case, proposed to do.
Phoebe Petrovic of Wisconsin Watch, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.